Welcome to our September 5th edition of Golden Black Live. A great show today, and that's by definition. When you have Tim Newton on the show, it's a great show. Tim Newton, voice of Purdue football, will lead off segment one. And Jeannie Boyd, who's now starting a Purdue Sports Administration, Sport Management program, will join us for segment two. That will be interesting because I'm a sports administration graduate. In fact, Tim and I were just talking about that offline, look forward to that at Purdue, kind of a new thing with Purdue. And then seg three, Brian Newbert will come back, talk about the commitment to Purdue's commitment by Jacob Weber this week, and much more in Purdue basketball. But, and I want to also thank our sponsors, of course, Triple X on the hill, but on the level of Purdue tradition since 1929, and State Farm agent Trent Johnson at trentasmyagent.com. All right, Tim, now that I haven't messed up the open too much, we're ready to go. No, but you know what? I texted you, I think, after the game last week when Purdue beat Ball State 31-0. You can't tell the players without a program. I don't know how you do a radio broadcast and pull all that together. You either faked a lot of people or you really knew it. Your son Aaron did a great job spotting, but talk about that and just the fact that when you have 80-plus new players, that makes for a challenge for everybody, but especially for the play-by-play guy.
When you walk around in fall camp, Alan, you always have that roster at the ready because you're thinking, who is number 17? Who is number 62? No idea. So you do a little practicing, maybe during a couple of practices. But yeah, the fact that I've got a spotting chart and I've got a spotter, my son spots for me, and he does a great job. And it is the way college football is now. That's college athletics. I think it's a little bit extreme that you have 82 new players, but it's not unheard of. And I think it will. I hope it will diminish a little bit and we'll get back to a little bit more normalcy. But I don't think that genie is ever going back into the bottle to where it was when you and I were in school and what we think now were the good old days.
Were the good old days. But, and it's funny because, because Barry Odom, Purdue's first year coach, hasn't said anything to the contrary. Of course, he did 50 plus in year one at UNLV and came right back and did the same thing and had two winning seasons. That leads me to believe that could be in question. And with the poaching going on, the Max Clairs, the Dylan Thienemans on down the line, it's going to be interesting to see how all this plays out. More names to memorize, but I hope Purdue, like you, gets down to that 20. But I'm thinking it's going to be a challenge.
It will be a challenge. I don't think we'll be in the 50s forever.
Yeah, I agree.
Because I don't think that's sustainable for anybody, honestly, yeah. Alan. And I go back, I'm still old enough and old fashioned enough to think that college athletics should actually mean something in terms of academics. And, yes, all these guys want to play on Sundays, but the reality is not many of them will. And when we talk with students here, we talk about always it's a 40-year decision. It's not a 4-year decision. And, if you got a kid that's in their third, fourth, fifth school, we had a women's basketball player last year that was at her 7th different school.
Yeah.
Is that in the best interest of the student athlete? I don't think it is. And I hopefully, again, this will settle down. I think it will settle a little bit. Again, it will never go back to where it was before, but I don't think that the unfettered wild free agency we've seen here in the last few years will continue. At least I hope it doesn't.
And you talk about that. Of course, your day job is in university administration communications for the Daniels School, and you've been involved at the university for a long time. And that, I think, can that be Purdue's secret sauce in all this? And that may be overstated, but Purdue still has academic rigor, has a reputation of being a place. Heck, you and I graduated from there. We knew how hard that was. But no, in all seriousness, it has to be. Can you be in today's world a 4-year school and make that attractive for student athletes, or is it still a little bit too early to tell in this revenue share world?
Well, it sure worked for Matt Painter. I mean, you look at Matt, I think he's kind of he is the salmon swimming upstream in all of this college athletic game. And I've met with recruits and with men's and women's basketball. I've met with recruits in football talking about the business school. And I can tell you that when we have those conversations, and it's usually the player and the parents or somebody involved with them, I don't talk about athletics. My whole conversation is about academically what they can do here at Purdue. And I still do believe in that. I believe that Purdue does have an advantage when it comes to having true student athletes. And I do think that as this settles, as the dust begins to settle somewhat, and the playing field in terms of NIL, which is never going to go away,
Yeah.
And revenue sharings will. I'm hoping that again that schools like Purdue will have an advantage moving forward, and let's hope so, because again, that's if you look at what college athletics should be, that's what it should be,
Yeah.
and so I would like to see if we can get back to that standard.
Well, you have the business school background in Purdue, and of course, rev share in theory, well, not in theory, in practice, is going to be the same for everybody. Where it's not going to be the same is in NIL, and you got a business mindset. How do you look at, and it's very early with all this. I get it. I mean, with the with the settlement, with the Deloitte factor going into being able to monitor, I guess is the best term, these NIL deals. But where does Purdue sit in the marketplace? I mean, there's on the surface, it's a small market in the Big Ten. One of the depends how you count. One of the 2 or 3 smallest, if not the smallest, and yet, again, you're going to have to compete with opportunities, economic opportunities for student athletes. Or is that overblown? I mean, and again, maybe the best answer is all of the above. We just don't know yet.
I think you have to find the kinds of student athletes, both on the men's and women's side. And I think Barry Odom talked about this earlier in the week. If a kid is looking to say, who's going to write me the biggest check,
yeah,
we're not going to be the place for you. That's just a fact. And if you look at even at NIL opportunities, okay, we're in a conference now with UCLA and with USC. We can get you on they'll tell a kid, we can get you on a commercial here in Los Angeles. We can get you on a studio. Well, we can get you a local auto dealer. And we have more than that. I don't want to say, because we have had student athletes who have gotten good deals, but we're not Los Angeles. We're not Chicago. We're not New York. So again, I go back to the factor of, yes, we'll have some NIL opportunities, but you got to get a student athlete here that's interested in the academic side as well as what they can do to enhance their abilities to go and play professionally. Those are the kinds. And again, I go back to Matt Painter. Matt Painter is the poster child for this in terms of finding those guys that are the right fit for Purdue and that want to be at Purdue. And I think that's a really important thing going forward. You've got to find kids that want to be here and want to be in this kind of atmosphere.
All right, we've went through 8 minutes of this interview. We haven't talked at all about football. We're done. I mean,
I get off my soapbox now.
August. No. I'm the one that's asking the questions. August 30th started football season. It really started before that, obviously, with the end of July, actually, for the Big Ten Media Day. All right, Purdue got the job done in week 1, 31-0 over Ball State, as we said earlier. A good performance. I don't think you have to be pretty nitpicky about what didn't go well. Though I thought Barry Odom on Monday was a little bit that way about just saying, we got to get better. But what was your takeaway? Have you had the chance to go back and look at this and think about what happened this past Saturday in West Lafayette?
I think if you go back, Ellen, it's kind of a perfect game to have in the opener because it was a win. It was a convincing win, but you're not going to cancel any practices after the win. And I go back to last year's game. Of course, Indiana State, an FCS school, maybe a false sense of security after that game, and then you go into a bye week, and then we know what happened after that. But I thought we saw signs, and the one thing I think that was encouraging for me, and that I believe that Barry believes this, he's got some playmakers on offense. We've talked about who's going to be that alpha receiver or who are going to be the people. We know about Devin Mockabee, but I think we saw that Michael Jackson is a dynamic receiver. I think Nitro Tuggle can be that way. I think there are other guys in that offensive room, along with Mockabee and along with Brown, that will be able to move the football and put points on the board. Obviously, the competition is going to step up quite a bit starting next week. But the defense, I thought, I loved the aggressiveness, especially early on. I mean, how many times have we seen, and we tear our hair out in the booth. When you get a team in 3rd and long and you come with a 3-man rush and just give them all day, I thought that Mike Scheer did a great job dialing up blitzes at the right time and putting pressure on. And so I hope that continues moving forward.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a must if Purdue's going to find a way to compete, and it looked at and on the receiver front, there's still a couple guys that didn't play.
Right.
Morissette and Chauncey Magwood,
Yeah.
right? Chauncey Magwood, is that the right?
The
Did I get
Chauncey Magwood, yes.
yeah, okay, good.
We had a Keon Magwood for Ball State last week.
Yeah, and so those are a couple guys that I know our guys, Tom Dienhart and Dub Jellison, expect to like them in practice, and we of course Morissette was here last year with the 2024 team. All right.
I would also point out when
I
I asked Barry last week which players stood out in camp as making the biggest jump. One of the first names that came out of his mouth was Rico Walker, who wound up getting the start at tight end. Now, Purdue did not throw the ball to the tight ends last week. I do expect that will change. He also mentioned Braden Joyner, who we saw as the starting center, and then Hidori Hines defensively. Those are the three guys that made the biggest jump. But Rico Walker, I think, is a guy that really caught their attention in fall camp. So even though we didn't see the tight ends involved in the passing game in week one, I do think that'll change moving forward.
They always say coaches can't coach effort. But I think you almost have to now because of the transient nature. You got to make darn sure, and Barry Odom is job number one, and not casting too many aspersions to the past regime, but it seemed that the first thing you want to do is you want to play hard if you're Purdue, no matter what happens. Barry Odom has promised that. I think we saw that last week. How much of that do you think that does play into this? I mean, again, you got a lot of new cats in the cradle, so to speak. You've got guys that, you got to be able to get them all up to what your expectations are. How do you view that in terms of that effort level, what you saw last week and what you expect throughout the season?
What I expect is what we did see on Saturday, and that is a high level of execution and a high level of just want to, which we didn't always see in recent memory. I was sitting at practice on Monday. Bilal Marshall, who is one of the analysts, played here at Purdue and is now one of the analysts on the staff. His dad was in town, and we sat together and we were talking during the practice, and he just talked about how well organized and efficient he thought the practice was on that Monday. That everybody was in constant motion. Barry has made a real point of getting players as many reps as possible, and you can see the organization really taking over. I think that's what has really impressed me from the minute I met him, is the fact that he's got a plan. It's a plan he's executed before, and as he said last week, he said it doesn't guarantee it will work again, but we know it's worked at least once. And really, with Missouri, he had to do some rebuilding there too. So he's a guy that a wise old man once told me, if you don't know much about the horses, bet on the jockey.
Yeah.
And I think he's a pretty good guy that's leading this parade around the home stretch as we get into the season in 2025. So I've come to be a big Barry Odom fan in the very short time I've gotten to know him.
Well, and I think it's again, leadership is everything, and experience is everything. And Barry Odom, we talked about, you and I think have talked about this before, but the thing you have to like about him too is the fact that he understands, and this is, what it takes, good and bad. Missouri, he had he was 500. He beat Purdue 1 out of 2 times. It wasn't an abject failure there by any stance, but he got shown the door, and yet he bounced back, went to UNLV, did the job. He's only 48 years old. I don't think he's turned 49 yet. I like a guy has dealt with loss and difficulty, and he seems to be pretty focused on the task at hand and not worried about the past, but having learned from the past.
He's a genuine guy. I think what you see with him is what you get. He's straightforward. He's not going to pull any punches. And again, I keep drawing parallels back to our basketball coach on the men's side. And you always know where you stand with Matt Painter, and I think you always know where you stand with Barry Odom. If something's wrong, he's going to correct it. If something's right, he's going to praise it, and that's just the way it is. And I think accountability and discipline have not always been present here in the past, and I think those two things have changed. And I can't tell you these last 11 games how they're going to go, but I feel a lot better about the future of Purdue football than I did at this time last year.
All right, your broadcast partner, Mark Herman, in his second year of doing this. And I was going to make a hair joke that you have hair. I don't have much, but Mark's got, I think, less. And yet Mark is terrific to work
That's the
with.
only thing I've got over Mark Herman.
I know, me too. And whatever little hair I have left, that's the only thing I've got. But really a good analyst. And you talk about him and what to, you work with Pete Quinn for a long time. You've had two Purdue legends in the booth, but that role of a color guy and of course Rob Blackman too. It is the team that's been together. The two of you have been together for a long time, I should say, but Mark being somewhat new, but he seems to have sitting next to him during home games. I see that it's pretty seamless about what he brings to the table.
Mark is, as you would expect, very easy to work with. He's a very laid back guy, understands football. This guy, he can look at the field and he can see what's going on. He can see what adjustments are being made. For me, it's full circle because when I was a student here, one of my jobs in the sports information office was to work on his Heisman Trophy campaign.
Yeah.
This is the days before internet. This is when you would find newspaper articles, clip them out of papers, make copies, and you would mail those out to the Heisman voters every week. So we've gone a little bit higher tech than that. But yeah, it's been fun to, I've known Mark for years now, and it's been fun to get to know him, and very easy to work with. And, we have a lot of fun. You got Kelly Kitchell on the sidelines.
No doubt.
He's always good for a laugh or two. And it's a good group to work with.
That Hall of Fame sports information class of circa 1980s with the Tim Newtons and the Kevin Sullivans and the Chris Klinks. I got to get a Chris Klink mention in because he watches the show from time to time. Though he just got married, so good for Chris. But it was a great group and in a formative time in the world of sports communications because it was just getting started. I mean, in a lot of ways. I mean, there were some schools that, Roger Valdiserri and the Joe Theismann and what Notre Dame did early on, but getting it up to level that Purdue was at in the 80s, you had some interesting guys to promote, and Purdue still didn't always take that approach that we were going to over market, but that was a heck of a learning time for you. I think it probably forged some things that you do now based on that.
And what a tremendous time it was to be a Purdue sports fan.
Yeah.
From my freshman to my junior year, the football team won 28 games and the men's basketball team went to the Final Four. First year, my freshman year, went to the championship game of the NIT. Right. And then in my sophomore year, we go to the Final Four. And I thought, what's the big deal? We're going to do this every year, right? Well, we kind of, I guess not every year, but we did go back again. So
yeah, and that was pretty good.
It was.
All right, you're going to be doing women's basketball this year. Katie Gerald's team is going to have some new faces. You'll have you can at least see them and be able to know what to expect. She's got a big job ahead of her. I mean, it's a year where, again, transition where Purdue sits in that world of revenue share and where it sits in the Big Ten has been a challenge for Katie. But what are you seeing early on? And obviously, you hope if you're a Purdue women's basketball fan that you can get yourself back to being competitive in the conference race.
Yeah, well, back to what we had with football with 82 new players. I think 10 of the 13 players, if I'm not mistaken, on this year's roster were not playing last year. So it is it's almost a brand new team. Just as the men's basketball team is scheduling toward what it should be scheduling toward is that they're looking to get back to the Final Four and win a championship. The women's team needs to build some confidence right now, early on. So they have, they've softened the non-conference schedule, which is what they should do at this point. But I can tell you, Alan, in year 36 of doing this now, the Big Ten in women's basketball is better than it's ever been. And when you add schools like USC, UCLA, Oregon, and Washington, those first two schools are top 10 teams. And so what was already a challenging conference has gotten even more challenging. And now, you're fighting just to get in the upper half of the Big Ten. And back when I started, when Purdue was winning Big Ten championships and going to its first Final Four, honestly, unless the bus broke down, there were 3 teams, maybe 4 in the conference that could challenge you. But when you went to Minnesota or Michigan or Illinois, those were 30 and 40 point wins guaranteed every year. Those games don't exist anymore. So I understand the frustration that some of our fans have. And, it's been frustrating at times, but you have to understand that the times are completely different, and the parity and the talent level in this conference has just skyrocketed since we started.
Yeah, 1990-91, if memory serves, Joy Holmes, Michelle Joseph, first Big Ten championship, right?
First Big Ten championship. Yep.
And remember the Ohio State game, the last one, they just absolutely boat raced them and had that championship. There have been a lot of great memories in Purdue women's basketball, and you've lived them. And when you get to call a national championship, 1999, that's a big deal. And of course, even that win over Tennessee earlier in the year, some classic moments. If you're a Purdue fan, you hope they return. All right, we're back to one last question in Southern Illinois. Sure. What do you expect? The FCS, Southern Illinois has caused some problems, certainly against FBS schools of late. Northwestern and others now. Yes. And Purdue's got to have, even though they did not have a very good year last year, the Salukis, Purdue's got to be paying attention, I would think. But what do you expect to? You've done hours of homework on the Salukis, maybe yes, maybe no. But yeah, what do you expect to come Saturday night at 7:30?
A little bit of a similar situation to last week. They've got a very mobile quarterback in DJ Williams. DJ was hurt in the third game last year and still was their second leading rusher, playing only 3 games all season. So that tells you that he's got an opportunity to run. I saw a little bit of their game against Thomas More, a Division II school, last Saturday night. Very athletic team. This is a top 15 FCS team as of right now. And you mentioned they beat Northwestern in 2022. They beat Northern Illinois in 2023. They will not be scared or intimidated by the surroundings. So it's a team that Purdue has to take seriously, and you hope you get off to a great start like last week. And maybe if you can get to a situation where you can play a lot of guys, that would behoove you. But first and foremost, you need to win the game and put that away first.
Yes, Purdue, Southern Illinois. It is not Purdue USC. Everybody's looking at that game, and it's hard to. I guess we can do that. That's part of the deal. But nighttime football in Ross-Ade Stadium is always fun. And
I hope the lights work better at Ross-Ade than they did in my office. They just
you're perfect the way you are. That golden voice.
Just so people know that I'm in Young Hall. There they go.
There it is. Back.
I'm in Young Hall, which for the old timers here used to be a residential place for grad students, and now it's an office space. And so the Daniel School of Business has most of the 9th and 10th floor here. So this is home, at least for 4 more months. And I am retiring from this job at the end of December.
You are, and that's your legend leaving. You're gonna the palace, I guess, that you'd call the Daniels School of Business, and then what's being built at over your left shoulder. I don't know which shoulder.
Yeah, it would be. Yes, it would be this general direction back here. Yeah,
is going to be impressive in terms of what that facility will be, and the idea is to leave it better than you had it when you came in. And Tim, you've absolutely done that there at the school, and appreciate as a Krannert grad or a Daniels grad. I still have to call myself a Krannert.
We are the artists formerly known as the Krannert School.
There you go. We appreciate all your efforts. All right, we'll look forward to the broadcast. It can be listened to on the Varsity app if you aren't in town at 96.5 FM and other many stations. But it's a good listen if you're not going to the game and you want to cozy up to some good play-by-play. Listen to Tim Newton, Mark Herman. It's going to be a fun, I think, a fun environment tomorrow night when Purdue takes on Southern Illinois. Thanks again, Tim, so much for your time, and we appreciate it as always.
Thanks for having me.
All right, segment 2 will be back in 2 minutes. Jeannie Boyd, Patrick Tutko will join us. We'll talk some Purdue sport management and interesting new opportunity at Purdue. And then, of course, Brian Newbert will join us in segment 3, and we'll look forward to that as well. So stay tuned. We'll be back in 2 minutes on Gold and Black Live.